imagine what he did was he was pissed when he come up there and looked in, and then we wouldn't fool with him, so that even got it more. So, although you got us in this mess, because I tried to run him off.
Oh well, we can get her. I got us in the mess. I got us out of the mess.
I think we got the deal on him now, though, is he knows, because I've had 4 people say something to me about losing our ass.
Oh,
That's what he's
my.
doing. It's kind of eerie.
Kristen turned the video link on and they were talking before the meeting, and somebody said something about you pissed him off. And I mean, it's real loud, and that's going to be on my video.
Oh, she turned it on too soon, or that person didn't know she
They
turned it
didn't
on?
know she turned it on.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Okay.
What said it? Can you tell?
I can't tell.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can after we re-listen to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Hi, Chief.
Hi. How are you?
Fine. Hi, Kevin.
What's this? What's that say? This. This.
Harold?
I can't hear anymore.
We can hear you.
What's these down here?
Hey, Daryl.
Hi, Ed.
Hi. Hi, Brenda. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I think we've got all 5 council members with us. We will get started. Today is Monday, May 4th, 2020. The time being 7 p.m. The regular meeting of the Greensburg City Council is called to order at this time. We are complying with all of the state set requirements for virtual meetings due to COVID-19. So we're still in that health crisis. We are recording tonight's meeting, and it will be available for viewership on our Facebook page and on the city's website, just like the audio recordings are regularly. Everyone who is not on the agenda to speak, or if you are but it's not your turn, please mute your microphones. That will help with some feedback and making sure that we have a clear sound as we go through this evening. If you do have a question or something, board members will be able to ask those in real time, or whoever, just unmute yourself. And then if you have a question or comment from the public, there are buttons there at the bottom under the reactions tab. You can click that, and we can hopefully get to you there. We continue to have several people join us here as we get started, but we'll go ahead and do so. Tonight's meeting, because it is virtual, we have to do every vote by roll call vote. So Brenda has established an order. She'll call each of those as we go through. And first one, roll call for attendance, please, Brenda.
Jamie Kane.
Present.
Daryl Poling. Daryl Poling. Daryl was on just a moment ago.
I think Daryl is having some audio connectivity issues. I can see in his view that he and his daughter are working towards some resolution of that.
Okay. Vieta McKenzie.
Present.
Kevin Fleetwood.
Present.
And Rick Emsweller.
Present.
Daryl, can you hear us now and voice?
I can hear you now.
Mayor.
There he is.
Daryl, I need you to acknowledge that you are here. I'm taking a roll call vote. So Daryl Poling,
Here.
thank you.
Okay. Daryl, did you hear the piece about roll call votes for each vote this evening?
I was aware of that. I did not hear, but I was aware of it.
Okay. We are also recording tonight's meeting to meet all of the state required reporting deadlines and things that we have, and we'll post it online tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Old business, we have the amendment for Salary Ordinance 2020-2. This was
Hold
brought
on,
up.
Josh, you want to approve the minutes?
Yeah, let's do that first.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 2nd minutes.
Second.
Okay, and then Brenda will do a roll call vote.
Kevin Kane,
Yes.
Daryl Poling,
Yes.
Diana McKenzie,
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Yes.
and Rick Emsweller.
Yes.
Okay, now we will move on to old business. Salary Ordinance 2020-2, this was an update to salary ordinances for airport employees. It also had a typo correction for the police chief and fire chief, I believe. You all approved this at our March meeting. It just needs a second reading, please.
I'll make a motion we pass on the second reading.
Second.
Seconded by Daryl. Roll call, please, Brenda.
Jamie Kane,
Yes.
Daryl Poling,
Yes.
Diana McKenzie,
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Yes.
and Rick Emsweller.
Yes.
Okay, that will pass. And under new business, we have Ashley Hennen from the Decatur County Animal Control, a request for funding towards spay and neuter and vaccinations for shelter animals. Ashley, good evening.
Hi, how are you guys? Staying
Great.
healthy, I
You're
hope.
good.
Okay, so I know you guys received the handout that I had emailed last week, so I won't get into all the statistics. But what it comes down to is mainly, so we make up the extra costs for the animals when we get them fixed. We do take a hit on dogs, but our huge hit comes from cats. And if you look down from the animals that we have adopted out, especially the cats, from 2018 to 2019, I mean, it was a substantial increase. And so our donation fund really took a hit. And the way we cover that is just by fundraising and by people coming and donating to the shelter. And that account is almost completely depleted from the last year and a half of adopting out so many animals, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, with our adoption prices, it just doesn't cover. So we have requested $15,000 to kind of assist us with this fund. And we're going to continue doing fundraisers as we go on. And we're going to, of course, still promote and continue to collect donations. But the county had offered to be the $7,500 if we could get the city to pay $7,500, and all this money, exactly what it would go towards, is the spay and neutering and vaccination of the cats and dogs in the shelter. So any animal that is adopted, we do require them to be fixed. So this money would strictly be used for that, along with all the donations and the fundraising that we're going to continue to do to bring the money in.
Are you currently getting quite a few people to come in and adopt pets?
Yes. So we've been closed for 4 weeks now, maybe. And we had 2 sets of litters come in of puppies. Those were the last ones we adopted out. So right now everything's on hold. We're going to start opening back up this week by appointment only with, restrictions, people wearing masks and things like that. But we get a huge amount of people wanting to come in, and not even just from Decatur County. We have people traveling, which is amazing. Matt did such a great job promoting our shelter that we have people driving hours to adopt from us too.
Are you in line with other shelters as far as cost? How long has it been since we've had an increase in cost for adoption?
So I asked about that as well, because my thing was maybe raise the cats a little bit and then raise the dogs just, $20, $30. That way to offset the cost just a little bit. But when we looked at surrounding shelters with the size of our area, the cats were usually about $40 to $50. Dogs, they charge between puppies and adults, which we had looked at doing because everybody wants a puppy. So we looked at raising the puppies to $150 and keeping adult dogs $100 because they're a little harder to adopt out when we have puppies in. But as far as cats, we are pretty expensive on cats compared to any other area. And we looked at Columbus specifically because we are trying to team up with them and do more adoption fairs with them. And they require all the animals to be vaccinated and microchips. And the microchips cost us $20 a microchip. And they only charge, I believe it was like $55 for cats. But they have a huge donations coming in because they're bigger.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of fundraisers are you guys doing?
So we do Arby's, Dairy Queen. We are trying to get set up to do Wendy's, and we were actually going to do Wendy's until all of this hit. We had one set up for February. So we try and alternate between all the restaurants here in town. And then we're going to do an open house. We were going to try and do it last year, but last year it started snowing in October. And that was the day we were going to do the open house. So we're going to try and do more things with the shelter and invite the community out. We have something planned for Fair Week, as long as hopefully that doesn't get canceled. We have a couple of vendors coming down. Kevin Springer, my animal control officer, he was looking at starting a 5K for the shelter too. So that was going to happen in August, but I don't know if that's going to be pushed back now because of everything that had happened. But he had already been to the Parks and Rec committee and had spoken with them about getting on the property and what we needed to get. And we've been in contact with Christy at the auditor's office as well about getting insurance for this. So we're really looking at different ways to bring in as much money as we can and make it as fun for the community. No, it's not constantly, you guys donate, please donate. We're trying to really bring the community in and bring awareness to the shelter, as well as making it fun for everybody.
And maybe something you could use the dog park for something. Do you have a way to transport, animals out there that maybe you could do once we're able to, gather?
Yes.
Some people just won't take the time to just go out there, but if they actually was out there and would see a pup or something out there, then it might be something that, and then, to be able to use the dog park too, to its,
to promote as well.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're open for any ideas. I mean, I have such a great staff and so many great volunteers that really care about what we do and our mission. And so we are open for anything. And I have a lot of volunteers who are willing to do after-hour events. As long as we can get it scheduled and we're approved for it, we're up for anything to bring in donation and recognition to the shelter.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else got anything to say?
I quickly reviewed your budget. In this 2020 budget, you for the animal control agreement, out of the council spent $55,000 in support of the animal shelter. Just the information.
Say that again, Josh.
In the 2020 budget, there was $55,000 paid for out of the Common Council's appropriations, line 341. So that's how much you have spent with the animal control agreement for this year.
Correct. Yep, and that is covering salaries and everything. That's just covering every different appropriation that we have. So it helps pay utilities, pretty much helps keep the light on and pay the staff is what that goes towards.
Is that 50%? Does the county match that at 55 as well?
Yes. Yep. So because we're supported 50% county, 50% city. So usually if one agrees to pay, the other will agree to pay the half, because we're split 50-50. So we always try and request half and half. So not one is taking bigger of a hit than the other.
Is it fair to say that you were just $14,000 short in your estimated cost for this year? Is this for the whole year? Is it just for what you've already done?
Well, we were anticipating how much money we were going to be spending out at the vet's office and getting the animals fixed. That's where the fund is really needed. So the restricted donations was sitting pretty decent mid-year last year. And then we just skyrocketed in adoptions. Like I said, Matt, he came on in late January of last year. And so it took him a few months to kind of settle in. And then by that time we were getting the budget in, we usually do that about June and get it submitted to Christy at the auditor's office. And then our adoptions they blew up. And that's what's really been eating at the funds is the vaccinations and getting them neuter, getting their rabies done.
Do you get a reduced rate from the veterinarians within the area? Do you use a specific veterinarian? And have we shopped around? If it's going to cost you $140 to get a cat ready to go out the door, then,
Yes, so we use Animal Medical. Hank Martin's actually on the board, so they do cut us a little bit of a cost, but I don't think I put that in this, which I can get you the figures on immediately. But I think that it doesn't. It's not a big cost difference of what you would pay if you went to the vet. So they do cut us a little bit of cost, but we're still paying for the vaccinations and the heartworm and the feline leukemia testing as well. And a lot of the community, when we were looking at raising the prices, a lot of people were starting to complain that we were charging too much at $75 a cat, even though they were all getting fixed. So we were playing kind of both sides. Of course, we want to charge more because we want to be able to at least break even. That was our goal, was to at least break even. That's what we need to do. And, if you can't really afford it, how are you going to afford to take care of the animal down the line? But then again, if people are refusing to adopt because we're charging $140 a cat, then the alternatives that we're going to have to euthanize, which is still extremely cost effective, So we're just kind of, that's why we always make sure all of our animals are fixed when they go out, because the population control it's outrageous in our county. As many animals as we get in, especially cats. Dogs, we're pretty okay on. And like I said, we do take a hit on dogs. It's just not as substantial as it is cats. But the cat population is it's insane how many cats we get in.
I had alluded to it earlier, but nothing was really stated in fact. But I personally would like to know what the adoption fee is in Rush, Bartholomew, Jennings, and Ripley.
Okay, I have that on my work computer, which is still at work. I only have the tablet here, but I have it on the same document, so I can definitely email you guys that when I get in the morning.
And I can appreciate using the local vets, because we do at home, but in this case, being a not-for-profit, if there's an avenue, I think you should also be investigating other avenues to potentially reduce your costs for their cost of adoptions.
And we did look at that as well. So we looked at the neuter scooter, which is a van that kind of comes around, and they do the spaying and neuterings here.
For how much?
It's still about $75 a cat. We also do Pets Alive Clinic, which is out in Bloomington. We run that clinic once a month, but we offer that to the public for people who can't afford to take their animals to the vet. They usually take about 15 cats and about 10 dogs on each transport once a month. But their cost is $50 a cat and $80 a dog, and that gets them fixed in the rabies vaccine. So if we use that clinic, which in theory we could use that clinic just for us, but then it would take away the service from Decatur County residents who can't afford to get their animal fixed.
Okay.
Oh, but maybe, like Kevin was saying, we can look around at the other counties and see what they're paying, and maybe find out who they're using, and maybe we have to transport, but we can get a much more reduced cost.
The only issue is if the company doesn't transport, then we don't have a way to transport that many animals, or even our animals, so it would be heavily relied on the person who is adopting and trusting them that they're going to go out and, because that was actually, I think it is in Seymour that they do that, where you can adopt a cat for $30, but then you have 60 days to get the animal fixed, and if you don't get the animal fixed, then they come and reclaim it. So we did look at that route as well, but we get a lot of Seymour people coming in to use our Pets Alive clinic because, $50 and they're able to get them fixed and their rabies vaccine. So it would still have to go through the Pets Alive clinic. And, because the vets, when they go to the vet's office, it's pretty expensive for them to get a cat fixed.
Okay. Well, personally, I've not seen anything where I've not seen any kind of advertisement or fundraising stuff for the shelter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you're advertising that or what's being done there, but I think maybe going forward we need to maybe if we're appropriating $55,000, maybe it's something that we need to look at to see if maybe we need to appropriate money at the beginning of the year,
right.
and make sure that money is being used for reaching out to the community and letting them know about the shelter and their need for donations or getting the word out about fundraisers or things like that. So just my thought going forward.
Yeah, and we can do more. I mean, like I said, I'm completely open to ideas on how to promote the shelter more. This is new territory for us. As in the previous years, we were mainly focused on animal care, not really getting out in the community. But in the last year and a half, we've really tried to push ourselves out in the community and get more attention to our shelter. So I've been in contact with Bill a lot at the newspaper. He's run articles for us, and we'll create like Facebook events. Sometimes we'll have it even advertised on the radio if they're able to get us in to advertise. So any other options that you guys have for us to promote where we can get out to different people, we're all ears because we're willing to do the work.
I was seeing things on Facebook there for a while, but I haven't seen anything recently. So.
Yes. Well, one of our girls, so Matt left in, I think it was January or early February, he moved to a different state, and so we hired another girl to do it, and then she got really sick with COVID, and she's been out for over a month. So I'm like, I can't. So we'll get there. We'll get you back there. So she was still in the process of training, but she'll get there. We'll be able to get her on track with him, and she's actually really good friends with him as well. So they're pretty close, and he gives her lots of tips and ideas on how to kind of continue and grow as her own so she can do some more promoting for us.
So the council, if you'd rather we table this for a month and see if there's some funds available, or if you have an idea where you'd like the funds to come from, we can look into that really quickly. Up to you.
I guess I'm of the opinion we table it for a month. We get the other prices from the other counties. We get the other information, and then maybe the animal board can take a look and come up with other ideas what they're going to do. Maybe bring that back next month, and we can make a decision then. But that way we have some more facts and numbers to look at with that.
Okay. Yep. And we'll have we'll make sure to meet before then and get all the information, and I'll make sure to email that on for next month's meeting.
Right.
That works for me.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
So do you need a motion to table?
We do need a motion to table.
Jamie, is that a motion? Is Layetta a second?
Yes. That
works for me.
Motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Roll call vote, please, Brenda.
Jamie Kane,
Yes.
Daryl Poling,
Yes.
Diana McKenzie,
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Yes.
Rick Emsweller.
Yes.
And that motion is to table for 1 month
Correct.
Right.
for additional information.
Chief
correct?
Bridges.
Yes. Okay. I am coming back in front of the council. This was talked about earlier in the year, and there's a little bit of a hiccup with the advertisement of this. It has been approved, but we need to actually go back and redo this. But it is the additional appropriation ordinance for the payout for Dave Wilson, who retired earlier this year. Again, that will come out of public safety, and that is in the amount of $19,000.
We've already done a first reading on that, haven't we? The first.
But there was a issue with the advertising, so that's why we're having to bring it back up because we had to re-advertise. So
is this ordinance 2020-3? That's the right.
Yes.
yes.
All right. So I'll make a motion. We approve 2020-3 on the first read. This is going to be the first reading then.
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Brenda.
Jamie Kane,
Yes.
Daryl Poling,
Yes.
Diana McKenzie,
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Yes.
Rick Emsweller.
Yes.
Okay, we will bring that back next month for the second reading. Chief Stoermer. Oh, I'm sorry, Chief Bridges. Did you want to mention what you had talked to the Board of Works about with Mr. McAlvin?
Yes. So tonight I was granted permission and that from the Board of Works to promote Lieutenant McAlvin to patrol captain, but he'd also be considered as captain of administration.
We do have our current patrol captain, Denny Blodgett, will be retiring next year. He's been doing a lot of those duties for over 20 years, so we are starting that transition now. And that, so there was no additional appropriation that was needed. That money was already in the budget for the salary ordinance, so no money needed to be moved, so we're good there. So the Board of Works did vote to approve the promotion of now Captain McAlvin.
Okay.
Cool.
Chief Stoermer. Chief, you've muted yourself.
Good evening. Sorry about those technical difficulties. Thank you. Council, you should have in your packets an executive summary followed by a quote in the amount of just over $222,000. I am requesting that appropriation come out of the public safety budget to replace and upgrade all of our radios from a current VHF system to an 800 megahertz system. When I took office here in January and met with the County Fire Chiefs Association, they were somewhat in the position of trying to upgrade their radio system along with Decatur County EMS. They have since secured that funding and have moved forward with the project without us at my request. I have submitted for a CIP for this to be purchased next year, if not additionally appropriated this year. Attaching the executive summary is again just a summary of the project along with the quote from Motorola Solutions. We evaluated two radios, a Kenwood and the Motorola. We currently are demoing the Motorola radios as we speak, as the Technology and Communications Committee that I have established for our department chose to be the best suited for firefighting operations. This radio has oversized buttons, oversized knobs that can be easily utilized with firefighting gloves in somewhat of a dangerous atmosphere, where the Kenwood is not. It is more of an industrial radio that, even though it has a green color, is really not meant for firefighting operations. We have tested the Motorola's with chainsaws. One of them was dropped and then dropped into a bucket of water and still transmitted. So they have proven their worth, and they have showed that they are durable. So with that, I will again entertain some questions.
But was the county volunteer fire associations, were they able to get grants? Is that what they got?
No, Jamie, they were not. They were unsuccessful in that. They utilized portions of their TIF money for the, I believe, what I understand would be their allotment of the public safety funding. They all pitched into that, and then I believe the TIF district pitched in the other half of the money for them to do that purchase. You'll have to forgive some of my ignorance as getting into it slightly late in the game and then not understanding how every bit and piece works here.
So, I mean, the other side of this is we've been working on phasing this in for a few years, right? I thought we had some of these already. We weren't replacing all of them, are we?
So we're, excuse me. This is only to replace the portable radios. We do not have enough portables the way it is, and the portables that we have are at their end of life. They no longer make parts for them, so if these radios that we currently do have would break, we would have to buy a new radio of the current model to replace that. We're able to talk Motorola into giving us a buyback at $1,400 and $1,500 respectively for the two different models of radios that we did have, so we are getting some trade-in credit for those. As well, we would sell our current digital VHF system radios that we have to most likely Rush County. They just went to that. Clarksburg is interested in a few as well. They were only going to give us about $400. Excuse me. for the radios on a Motorola trade-in, so we declined that option because we can sell them outright for more money that we could then, once our new radios are in, these radios were sold, then we could go back and offset some of this cost. The mobiles are not being replaced at this time. The mobiles have not reached their end of life, so the truck radios have not. But this quote that you see in front of you will outfit every firefighter with a portable radio, as well as 5 additional radios for mass casualties or any type of disaster situation where those coming in to Decatur County or coming into Greensburg would then be able to communicate with us on our same radio frequencies without much issue. The county is, like I said, going ahead with their project, and so they will be switching over and operating on that, and we will be operating hopefully along with them the best that we can. But yeah, this year, correct, this has project from the history that I've done has been talked about for several years, and now actually has finally come to fruition.
So what was it that I read about were you talking about the mobiles that you'd be keeping for backup?
So we would, the mobiles will be, those are the truck radios, so those stay. We will not have to keep any radios for backup. The radios that we have quoted and are looking at purchasing have both the low band current system and the 800 system in one radio. So we can sell all of our current radios because we're going to have that redundancy in one radio. So instead of carrying 2 radios or having to potentially carry 2 radios, we'll be able just to carry one radio and switch to whichever frequency is the correct frequency that they're operating on. Excuse you.
Chief Bridges, do you use Motorola radios and those in your?
Yes. So we currently upgraded a few years ago, and what happened was they sent a lot of our old radios down to the volunteer fire departments and that. So that's where that kind of got a little bit dicey and everything. So we do currently use both Motorola and Kenwood, but for patrol purposes, we do use Motorola. And again, they are a very well-built radio. So I concur with the fire chief on that brand and that. I guess my only question is I can't remember who's on the TIF board. Is that something maybe TIF can also help us out with? Since it's infrastructure and I don't know. I just was throwing that out there. If they help the county, would they be able to help maybe a little bit with the city's portion too? Not saying 100%, but maybe just a little bit.
I know they had to go to the TIF board 4 times for money, and I don't exactly know if it was their delivery, their presentation, or how exactly that worked. And I'm not, again, ignorance is I'm not familiar with the TIF board other than the fact that of the TIF areas. That's another funding opportunity. I don't believe that they will encompass that whole cost, but I know they did help the volunteer fire out, but as far as grant funding wise goes, there was none of that. They had to they taxed all the fire departments this year into spending all of their public safety money.
And I'll ask Ron. Ron can be thinking about this in a minute too, but Daryl is the TIF board council member who serves on that, but is also new this year. Jamie was last year.
Darren was.
Darren.
But I don't know. Daryl, do you think that this is something that we could maybe take to the TIF? Is this something that they would look at?
No, it's certainly something we can take. I was going to ask the city attorney, what's your feelings on this? Is this something that TIF would be permitted to do? We could use TIF money for this? I mean, I understand the county is doing it, but
I would say the difficulty that I see in using TIF funds is finding a appropriate project on the project list to kind of put it into, in terms of classification. That's not to say that it's not worth having the conversation with TIF, because it is related to public safety, and I will be the first to admit to you that I have not looked at the project list since I wrote the last one like 6 years ago. But if there's something we can fit it into, certainly it would work for TIF funds. If we can't fit it into a bucket, then no, it's not going to be a starter.
I don't think there's anything currently on the redevelopment commission's project list that this would fall under. Not to say that they couldn't revisit their list. In fact, they're working on a capital improvement plan that is going to necessitate revisiting the list, but the schedule for that's a little unclear at the moment. The other potential option is to go to the county redevelopment commission, ask them for assistance.
I think the other piece of the TIF conversation too is that the funding structure that TIF is currently developing is towards those projects that Ron mentioned in partnership with Structure Point, who they've hired to be a part of that. It also seems to be more focused, and not that this is not important or shouldn't be considered, but it also tends to be more focused on cultural or infrastructural improvement projects is what they deem the funding and where I think they would like to see the funding directed. Doesn't diminish this in any capacity. That's just where their head has been recently. And with the Veterans Way Phase 2 project underway, some of their capital is tied up for
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing though, Chief, that we could look at, or I'd ask you to take a look at least 6 firefighters are paid out of the Honda fund. And if we're looking to replace the mobiles, why couldn't we at least take maybe 6 of those from that fund at least? That would make sense. I think there's some money in there that we could use to help offset for that. And that, at least that makes sense, right?
I'm not planning on replacing the mobiles anytime soon, Jamie.
I thought you said we were replacing the mobiles.
No, mobiles are staying where it is. This is strictly a portable project.
So you're just replacing the handhelds.
That's correct.
Right.
Just all handheld radios are being replaced. None of the in-vehicle radios are being replaced.
Well, I'm sorry. I say so the handheld though, but 6 firefighters have 6 radios, right? So
correct.
Well, why couldn't 6 of those radios come from the Honda fund? I think there's some money in there that could take a chunk of this at least, and we could pay for it out of there.
Yeah, I haven't seen an appropriations report probably in a month and a half, 2 months, so I'll take your word for that. You've probably seen one sooner than I have. But I also toyed with the option of going to the trustee, being Washington Township. It just after our current meetings with them and spending about $1.2 million on a fire truck, I didn't see that would be a very decent outlet after kind of expending a lot of their fire funding in other projects.
Part of the long-term plan with the Honda money as well, in addition to that, is the replacement of the ladder truck that is projected to be 2023, I think is what we were working with Reedy on, or 2022, at north of $1 million. So any amount of money, it's money no matter where it comes from, saved in there. I think that was where the depletion would come from.
That's correct. That was going to be anywhere from a $1.2 to a $1.6 million project. And previous discussion, we had talked about trying to use Honda funding, like you said, Mr. Mayor, for that.
Nathan, what's the life expectancy of these radios?
The life expectancy on these radios, they tell me 20 years. This is currently Motorola's latest brand, and they have, it's like a computer. I guess you can buy it one day, and the next day it's out of date. But the P25 technology, the technology that the infrastructure that the state keeps, that's not going to change. These radios, we should have these radios for 20 years easily, secondary to, maybe replacing one that gets destroyed or damaged in a fire or something like that. just because they're rugged and they're built for this type of work does not necessarily mean that they're going to survive this type of work for 20 years. But this would be, I would say this is probably, this is one of those purchases that you're definitely going to have a return on investment before you're replacing them. It is insane how much this technology costs. And we've revisited this quote twice and trying to get the price down. And this is as lowest as we could get it. But yeah, so you are looking at about a 20-year purchase or return on investment with that. I did include the financing, or I believe the financing for 30 and 60 months was on there. If that is of interest, I don't know personal feelings on that. Sometimes it's if you have them, I don't know how that works, but those are other financial options to lessen the blow. You do pay a little bit more because of interest. I believe it's put up in that in the quote there that you would be what I would consider overpaying slightly if you went that route as well.
Yeah, I was looking at those, and I was going to ask Brenda if there was any, from a tax standpoint, the interest that's paid for the lease. Is there any benefit? Not a benefit, but could that be a benefit from a tax standpoint? Is trying to write off the lease interest?
Right. Yes.
And then what's the current balance how much is in the public safety fund?
I do not have that right here at my fingertips. Josh, do you have that?
Give me 1 minute. Maybe. Give me 1 minute, maybe.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for a copy of that here. I apologize.
Just keep in mind whatever number he says, we just spent, 19,000 of that, so that won't show in that yet.
What was that for?
The Dave Wilson's.
Well, it will be.
Yeah, but right now it's still in public safety, right?
Yeah.
So whatever number Josh comes back with, it's 19,000 less than that.
Right.
I did call Motorola Thursday of last week just to ask if their lease rate or their percentage rates had changed with the fluctuation of the economy. Maybe hoping to get a better rate than what is published. But what is published is what you see is they're accurate, that they were able to get back with me with. So I was hoping maybe for a little bit lesser amount with the way things are, but no dice.
Did you say it's public service? Public safety, right?
Public safety.
Okay.
Balance. Current balance is $839,369 as of 4/30.
Okay, so the end of April. So there's enough money in there we wouldn't have to finance it.
But what else are we projecting out of that this year?
Yeah.
Well, I think the budget was I don't have that in front of me, but I thought it was less than.
The total projected budget for 2020, assuming that it was all appropriate, my notes don't dictate something different, were $501,895.
So roughly another 300,000.
Right.
Well, from a tax flow standpoint, what are we earning on money we're investing?
Right now, the only thing we are our bank accounts, and then we have that $4,700,000, and it's at 0.25 right now. The bottom has just dropped out of everything. That's the highest I can get. If I start shuffling money around, I could go up to 0.33, but we're not sure that that's going to hold. I talked with the bankers today, and they're hoping to start coming up, but it's not going to come up as fast as it dropped.
Well, that answered my thought right there.
Okay.
say something real quick? And I don't know, I might have missed it in that. One thing that I'm not sure the fire chief mentioned in that with these radios and that, the other equipment that they are currently have and that is like I said, becoming very outdated in that. And this definitely plays a big piece on firemen's safety on scenes and stuff because of the low band and switching from to the 800 megahertz and that. So this is definitely a firefighter's a safety for them that would be very beneficial because again, those radios and that with working with dispatch, we would all be on the same page on being with the 800s for the most part. So when there's a critical incident, everybody would be functioning on 800. So again, it would be a good safety issue for them. And I'll go back to mute.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very needed project. It's just coming up with the funds.
Nathan, what's the timing on when the county's going to the new radios?
The county hopes to go live with this July 1. Their radios are in. They're currently being programmed. Chief Bridges and I both sit on the dispatch advisory board, and that's where really the hang up is. But the chairman of the Fire Chiefs Association has pretty much said that July 1 he wants to turn all the 800s on and have them start using.
Okay. And how long does, and maybe it's in here, I didn't see it. How long does it take once a decision's made to actually get the radios in? What's the lead time on it?
We're looking at about 45 days, and that is to get the radios in, the radios programmed, and then luckily we've had the demos, so we've done quite a bit of training already on proper use, proper procedure, things like that. So the rep has told us he is aware. I have briefed him on our process of 2 readings and things like that. So he told me 45 days turnaround, and I believe I can talk to the Fire Chiefs Association in the county, and we can push that back. If this project on our side is going to be happening, I would request that they push that back until we can all make the transition at the same time.
But if that doesn't happen because these are dual band radios, you'd still be able to communicate with them. They'd have the ability to switch to the other band and communicate with you guys.
Their radios are going to be single band 800 only. So we would have to communicate. We are the only ones going dual band to alleviate that second radio. We could still communicate with dispatch. They still have to maintain their low band, their VHF frequencies. It would just, again, as Chief Bridges said, it would be somewhat of a safety issue making mutual aid calls with them, as they would be on 800, we would be on VHF, and we would have to find a common frequency through what would be considered patching or dispatch doing a key or them going to a low band radio.
What's the price difference between the dual band and the multi-band and the single band radios?
It is a $250. I don't believe that's in the quote, but it's a $250 option per the VHF and the UHF band. These radios that we originally looked at had 3 bands in them: ultra high, very high, and 800. And we took the UHF out because we don't need that, and that saved us $250 on each radio. We could look at going to a single band radio, but with that, then we would be on the same communications frequency as everybody else. However, then we would not be able to sell all of our current VHF radios. So some of that money coming back would not necessarily be there. That would be a smaller amount because we would have to have the backup system. So we had some redundancy in case we did have some type of failure. Because the 800 system as it currently is and will be in the future is all owned and operated by the state of Indiana. So there is no infrastructure cost to the county or to the city for this like there is on the low band or the VHF side.
Yeah, the $250 for each radio, it's kind of when you're talking a $222,000 project, it's only $9,000 to have them. I mean, it makes sense to do it with the multi-band.
Right, they need to do band. If they go out of county or something, you gotta make sure your departments can go
No,
down.
I agree. At 250 radio makes perfect sense.
Okay, so I have a question as far as, I mean, I strongly feel that we need to move forward with everyone else. If they're upgrading, then I feel like we need to upgrade so we communicate. Will we still be able to communicate easily with volunteer services?
So
Do we communicate with volunteer services?
So are you talking about the volunteer fire departments?
Exactly.
Okay, those are the people that are making this change.
Okay.
So the volunteer fire departments are kind of driving this change within Decatur County. These radios will have the opportunity to communicate, though, along the VHF with Rush. Shelby County uses 800, so we will have that capability. We're able to, through this system, we're able to program basically what I would consider the donut counties around Decatur. We can program all their channels into our radios. So no matter where we can go, we have communications with them. We do communicate with the volunteers quite a bit. We still make a lot of car accidents with those agencies, and this will put us all on the same frequency. And like Chief Bridges said, this will actually improve our communication.